After the win over LSU, we are now talking about a ranked Badger team. In the new coaches poll, the Badgers are 16th. In the AP poll, they are up to number 10. Welcome back into Camp Randall Stadium, another edition of the Badger Breakdown. And guys, we're going to do 10 minutes on the clock again, 10 minutes to break down the LSU game, 10 minutes to talk about Akron. Last week we were talking about we didn't know what to expect from this Badger team. What did you guys learn?
Well, I think we learned is for a first game that the defense has a lot of grit, its ability to keep Leonard Fournette in check for the most part. I know the national talk has been about LSU's lack of imagination and all that. Whatever. They got a lot of talent on the offensive side of the ball, and I thought the Badger defense played extremely well. And the offense did a really good job, Brandon, I thought, of not letting one mistake become two, then become three. If you're talking about a Bart Houston interception or a missed 4th and 1 on a run play, they didn't let it pile up on them. And I think, we'll learn more about this team in the coming weeks, but that was an awfully good start against a team I still think is going to be pretty good in LSU before this season's done.
I think we also learned that they're very resilient. And I'll give you a couple of examples. We'll start with personnel. When Chris Orr was lost on the very first defensive snap of the game, Ryan Conley stepped in. Wound up as the second leading tackler, and you could argue that he had maybe one of the biggest single defensive plays of the game on his screen tackle of Fournette. We saw Micah Capoy limp off the field. Now they went into the game with a tag team at left guard with Micah and John Dietzen. And then John Dietzen took over and took all the snaps. So that was a kind of resiliency you really hope to see. You never know if those players are going to be able to produce or contribute to the extent that both of them did. I liked seeing that.
Yeah, especially with the Orr injury, because I had the flashback of last year, the season opener against Alabama, where Michael Caputo plays, 2 or 3 plays, whatever. Corey Clement never got started because of the sports hernia, and I'm thinking, oh, not again. Well, they prevented that from happening. They said, no, it's not going to happen again. And Mike mentioned Conley's play on the screen pass to Fournette. There was a huge play early in the fourth quarter. A lot of huge plays took place in the game, but that was pretty close to the top of the list.
We can't overlook the resiliency of this team. Once they had the lead, knew that they probably should be leading by more, and then within a couple of possessions, we're trailing. Now, what are you going to do when you get hit in a fight? I mean, that was the question out there for this team. How are you going to respond? And we got that answer.
Yeah, up 13 to down 1 in 67 seconds. I wanted to ask you guys about losing Chris Orr, first defensive play of the game. He's obviously out for the rest of the year now. What did you see from Ryan Conley that was so impressive?
Well, I think the fact that he didn't seem scared. He looked like he knew what he was doing. Beyond that play on the screen pass, I know Paul Christ, in talking with him, said he graded out pretty well. Was it perfect? No. Hardly anybody is going to have a perfect game, but I mean, he showed he belonged. And it's that, how many times have you heard it in football? You're a play away, to the point where, yeah, okay, I hear you already. Well, he did hear that, and he embraced that. And when a very good linebacker, I mean a really good linebacker in Chris Orr going down on the first defensive play, Ryan Conley stepped in and acted like he's been around for a while. I thought that was a pretty, he had a lot of key performances on defense. Can't minimize what he did.
Conley has a certain toughness about him. I think we heard that last year out of Dave Aranda when he was the defensive coordinator. He raved about Conley. None of us knew who he was really talking about because we didn't see him much on the field. I mean, Conley was a senior captain and starting quarterback on a state championship team. And Badgers have gotten some mileage out of high school quarterbacks and then making that transition to linebacker. In fact, now they're waiting on TJ Edwards to see when they can get him back to bolster that inside linebacking core again.
Another linebacker that seemed to really flash was TJ Watt. He seemed like he was all over the field for the Badgers against LSU.
Looks like he's found a home. We've seen him in different spots in his career, tight end, battled the injuries. We'd see him line up over the center early last year, but that's a pretty nasty combo. I know last year it was too with Joe Schobert and Vince Beagle. Now you have TJ Watt and Vince Beagle as the outside linebackers. That is a formidable duo. And in a season where I'm not sure how good this team is. I know it played really well on Saturday, but I feel pretty good in saying even with that hit to Chris Orr, and that's considerable, and even without, as we speak, TJ Edwards, and hopefully he's back sooner than later, that this linebacking core can still be very good, and every level of the defense has a chance to be very good.
And I think you'd agree with me that what really stood out was the physicality of the front seven and the offensive line. That was one thing in question going into the game against the Southeast Conference heavyweight. But the Badgers really controlled the line of scrimmage for vast portions of that game, and I'm not sure anybody anticipated that.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because nationally, as I said a few minutes ago, LSU was getting hammered for its play selection. We sit up here and thinking, Badgers won by 2, could have won by 17.
Absolutely.
I really could have, which that's a good thing. And hopefully they will build on that. I don't want to get into the overreaction mode, but it's a great start point as they get ready for game 2.
Yeah, there is a lot to build on. Even the players, Paul Chris said on Monday at his press conference that the players came to him Sunday with ways they think they can get better. Obviously, the turnovers are an issue probably on offense. Where do you guys see this team can improve?
Well, that's a key point, and I would even look beyond the turnovers, the 2 interceptions and the fumble. They missed a 4th and 1 early in the game, and that's something that every coach is going to want to try to fix. But the red zone offense, I mean, that's probably the most obvious. That's what we were just saying a couple minutes ago, where Wisconsin could have won this game by a couple of scores and maybe then some. When you get inside the 20, you obviously have to get points somehow, but you want to get 7 out of that. And they missed a couple of chances early in the game, even though the Badgers were dominating the game statistically. It's 6-0 at the half. And that third quarter drive that made it 13-0, you're going, all right, they finished. Obviously, they finished late in the game, but the red zone offense would probably be the one area where I think Paul would want to clean up.
It's kind of funny. It surprised me at the end of the game when I looked at the number that they were only 3 of 15 on third down.
Right.
And at times it seemed like they were in control of what they wanted to do, but there were a lot of near misses. Okay, and that doesn't help you. But if they can get a higher percentage there, and Bart Houston was very candid on Monday talking about the mistakes that he made that are just inexcusable and unacceptable, and that he's got to be more aware of game situations moving forward.
Yeah, and I think we should point out too that the LSU defense is really good.
Especially that secondary.
Great talent. And that secondary, it's been around. There's a lot of experience on that side of the ball. So, for a first game for Wisconsin to be able to move the ball for the most part the way it did against LSU, I think some future opponents against LSU is going to have trouble matching what Wisconsin was able to get done.
So yeah, Corey Clement didn't have eye-popping numbers, 21 carries, 87 yards, but he ran hard between the tackles.
He grinded, didn't he?
He looked like he was on a mission running in between the tackles there.
That'll win a football game. I think more so than anything else, might not win many votes on a ballot for the Heisman. But what he did was what they needed, especially when they were controlling the ball early, keeping Fournette on the sidelines. That was a big part of the defense. Fournette had 2 rushes in the first quarter and was not a factor in the first half and didn't really get lathered up, an old Barry Alvarez term, until the second half. And Corey's tough running, along with Dario Gumbuwali. I thought he had a real strong second half, didn't you?
He did, yes, the run on the ball, and then obviously we'd be remiss if we didn't mention Troy Fumagalli and the day he had catching the ball from the tight end position, 7 catches, triple-digit yards. The Badgers had 8 different receivers. If you count the running backs, they had 8 different guys catching passes from Bart, but Fumagalli was critical in what he was able to do. That's a nice little relationship they have going with Troy Fumagalli and Bart Houston.
Yeah, so 7 catches, 100 yards for Fumagalli. First Badger tight end to go over 100 yards since 2010. It seemed like every time they needed a big pass play, it was going to Fumagalli. But now with such a big win against LSU, you can't let down against an Akron team. You got to keep playing hard. You can't overlook them. They're a bowl team from a year ago. What does this team need to do to make sure they keep it going?
Well, for this week, as Paul Chris mentioned in his Monday press conference, this is a different type of prep when you look at the Akron offense. It's a spread attack. Their quarterback, Thomas Woodson, threw 6 touchdown passes. It was against VMI, an FCS team, but he threw 6 touchdown passes. A lot of transfers on this team, nearly 2 dozen, many of which are from Power 5 schools, Ohio State, Iowa, Pittsburgh, Miami. The Akrons of the world are used to playing in these kind of environments, and I know you probably heard that a lot, but they beat Pitt 2 years ago. Paul was on the sideline, so he knows firsthand that a MAC program can be dangerous, especially in this case for Wisconsin if you let your guard down a little bit.
We saw it again Saturday, Western Michigan upsetting Northwestern. Every year a MAC team's going to win a game, at least win a game, so you can't afford to overlook that opponent. And talking to some of the players, one word kept cropping up about what they needed to do after the great momentum from Lambeau and from beating LSU. How do you use it and not lose it? Use it and not lose it, and they kept coming back to energy. They've got to practice really well this week with high energy to get ready for the home opener.
Yeah, I think this is where Paul and his staff, it's always a great challenge for a coaching staff, but we've been around these guys, especially Paul and guys like Joe Rudolph. They're pretty good at this because they're aware. There was so much hype about LSU. There's so much hype about the the Big Ten schedule and where it starts. Akron and Georgia State probably aren't going to get a lot of run from the fans. We know how the media nationally is going to treat it. So that makes it a little scary. But I think Paul let his guys have fun on Saturday night, and then you humble them a little bit on Sunday and Monday, and then you lock in saying, hey, yeah, you won, but you could do this better, this better, this better, and that's the process that they'll prepare for
And they're
Saturday.
going against one of the wiliest coaches in the game, Bowden. And
Yeah.
you know he'll have his team ready. He'll use every trick to get them motivated.
Yeah, we'll see what happens Saturday. 2:30 kickoff against Akron here for the home opener at Camp Randall. All three of us will see you on Saturday.